Will anime Vanguards have LeBron longevity? Now, I'm sure this is a question that has plagued many scholars for ages, and today we will finally be answering the age-old debate of whether or not anime Vanguards is truly here to stay for the long run, or if it's just another one of the millions of anime games that comes and goes. And before we can answer that question, first we have to look at what exactly we're comparing anime Vanguards to. The greatest basketball player of all time, LeBron James, playing in the league for 22 years, winning numerous titles and accolades, holding the all-time highest scoring title for most points ever in the league. There's quite a bit to stack up against anime Vanguards, and while some of you might look at this video and say that it's a bit of an outlandish comparison and that there's no way that I can dedicate an entire video to analyzing the anime Vanguard's life cycle in relation to the career of LeBron James in the NBA, I beg to differ, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. So I'm going to look at this chronologically, right? LeBron James did not play in Jordan's era, even though I'm pretty sure there was a brief period of time where they were both in the league. LeBron did not play in the same era, in the same league era as Jordan himself. By that same note, anime Vanguards did not play in the same era as Anime Adventures. When anime Vanguards released, they came onto the scene at a very, very opportune moment that let them strategically place themselves in the void that Anime Adventures had once left. And in that same breath, LeBron is just fucking better than Jordan. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. But when we're judging longevity and we're trying to ask ourselves, how long will anime Vanguards be around? There's one very important factor that we have to take notice of, that's consistency. Similar to how LeBron has been one of the most consistent players in the NBA, averaging 25 points per game for well over 20 seasons, making him one of the greatest veteran players ever in the league. How does anime Vanguard stack up in terms of updates, consistency, and quality for Roblox on the anime tower defense genre? And I'd really argue that they're one of the most consistent there's ever been. Now, I'm not gonna be completely oblivious to the fact the game has had its ups and downs, especially on release. Every single time they would release an update, you might as well have not played it for 24 hours or so. There were going to be so many bugs riddled within that update, it wouldn't even have made it fun to play. But what they've consistently done is improve. Whether you like it or not, anime Vanguards, since release, has consistently gotten better. I couldn't name you a single update where the game was changed drastically for the worse. Has the game had bad updates? Absolutely. Just like LeBron has had bad games. You can't expect perfection from anything because at the end of the day, we're only human, and perfection isn't something that's achievable, but you can always strive to be better. And that's something that I would say anime Vanguards really does follow to a T. If I had to tell you what update I personally think was the worst, what update was the low point for anime Vanguards, I'm going to go with the Don update that had the Occult Hunt, Diavolo, Okarun, the Grandma, Puini, and Momo. In my opinion, I believe that was update, correct me if I'm wrong, update 1.5. Pretty sure that was the one. In my opinion, that was the worst update this game has ever received. And it's simply because the game was still in its infancy stages. They were still trying to figure out how they were going to do updates, what direction they were going to take things. Not only was the update extremely lackluster in the gameplay department, every single unit from that update was dog shit, except Diavolo. But I've stated this once and I'll say it again, when you make the only worthwhile unit in your entire update a 0.005% drop that most players aren't going to get, you know, you can basically write off the entire update as useless for the average player. And this was also before we could go into the AFK world to earn the event currency. So if you wanted to earn Wisps, the blue Wisps, which were the event currency for the Don update, you really had to sit there and manually grind a 30-minute dungeon. And that was just, oh my god, that was a dark time. That was a very dark time. Sticking with anime Vanguards during that time, you know, you were fighting on the front lines because, oh my days, it was definitely an experience to say the least. Now that we're in present day, I'll talk about that later. Obviously, they've improved on those issues. But back then, if you wanted Diavolo, realistically, you had to get a macro. You had to buy Informal's macro or get some type of auto hotkey macro to play the game for you to even stand a chance at getting Diavolo. Because playing that game mode legit like manually for hours and hours on end is medieval torture. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't think anyone was willing to do that or put themselves through that. I'd argue every single person that owns Diavolo, at least 80 to 70% of the people that own Diavolo got it through macroing. If macros didn't exist, I promise you Diavolo would be one of the rarest units in the game, simply because he came out during a time where you couldn't earn the event currency from AFK Chamber. So for the average player, you had to grind, and he was also just incredibly rare. Both of these things, coupled with the fact that the Donadon update was also not a low point in the game's life cycle. It still had a good chunk of players. There were still a lot of people playing. It didn't have anywhere near as much on release. I believe they had over 260k on release. By the time that we were at update 1.5, we were nowhere near that. Still a good amount of players, but yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say, the Donadon update was their worst update to date. In my opinion, one of their worst updates, if not the worst update. But when we're talking about consistency, have they consistently improved? Absolutely. Update after update, they've gotten better and better. They've added changes I didn't even know we needed. They add quality of life shits that I didn't even think about, and I'm like, damn, now that this is in the game, I don't know how I lived without it. It's really cool. I'll also say this. You know, update 1.75 wasn't that good either. But when I'm talking about consistency, right? Every single update, even update 1.5, which I deem to be the worst update, did not change the game for the worse. There were no fundamental changes that made the game bad. The new content itself just wasn't fun. That doesn't mean the game was worse than when it was on release. Technically, it had new content and more things to do. So, objectively speaking, the game was improved upon, but the gameplay loop was just not fun, which is why people hated the update so much. And like I said, in terms of consistency, I'd say ever since the Winter Portals update, they have only been going on wins. Ever since Gogeta was released, I believe this was update 3. We had the Winter Portals with Gogeta and Remenran and Fubuki. Ever since that happened, that's when I really think Anime Vanguards got a good foothold on what they want to do with their game, and they've consistently improved upon that update after update. Every single subsequent update after update 3 is what for me marks the comeback of the game. And I'd say most people would agree with that. It's not really a very crazy take to have. Everything before that was low-key, ooh, oh brother. If I remember correctly, update 2 was the Fate update. This also released at the time that Anime Adventures was re-releasing, so like at the height of its popularity. Those dudes had like 8k players during the Fate update. Man, oh man, those were some dark times. If I was a developer for Anime Vanguards during those days, I would have been shitting bricks. But hey, I'm glad they didn't abandon ship, because now we have the game that we have today. So when we ask ourselves the question, does Anime Vanguards have LeBron longevity? I'm going to clock in my answer right now and say yes. I believe this game to firmly hold a grasp on the anime tower defense genre, to have a good monopoly over it for at least another year. That's my prediction right now. And 1 year of being relevant on Roblox is like fucking 10 years of being good in the league. Because, you know, with Roblox, you know, your things come and go, right? You're either the newest thing, the newest trend, the newest flashiest game, or you're not. And you just fizzle out and die. But to me, Anime Vanguards seems like they're here for the long run. They want to be here for the long run. They've been improving their game update after update. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the future of the game. With all that being said, that's going to be it for me. Have a great day or night wherever you are. Let me know in the comments how long you think Anime Vanguards will last. And that's it from me. We will catch you in the next one.